The holding bay of the Galactic Conservation Station smelled of ozone and fear. Lyra Vale pressed her palm against the observation window, watching as 3 Vrexian handlers in full combat armor attempted to approach the containment field. Inside, a small creature no larger than a terrier snarled with such fury that the translator couldn't keep up with the torrent of threats pouring from its maw. Ricard was a Kynathi cub, one of the last of his kind. His species had been wiped out when asteroid miners accidentally destabilized their moon, sending it crashing into their homeworld. The rescue teams had found him in the debris field, clinging to a chunk of his destroyed nursery, orphaned and utterly alone. Now, he was the conservation program's most challenging case. "We've tried everything," Administrator Quathal clicked, his mandibles twitching with frustration. The insectoid alien gestured at the datapad floating beside him. "Sedatives barely slow him down. Behavioral conditioning has failed. Even the empathic Luminara couldn't establish contact before he bit through her containment suit. The Council is recommending euthanasia." Lyra's jaw tightened. "He's traumatized, not broken. He watched his entire world die." "He's dangerous," Quothal insisted. "He's attacked every species that's approached him. We cannot rehabilitate what we cannot touch." Inside the containment field, Ricard's fur stood on end. He was covered in midnight blue scales that shimmered like oil on water, with 6 legs ending in retractable claws, and a tail that split into 3 barbed tips. His eyes glowed amber with feral intelligence and bottomless rage. When one of the Vrexian handlers extended a feeding probe, Ricard launched himself at the barrier, his small body crackling with bioelectric energy that made the shield spark and whine. The handlers retreated immediately. Lyra had seen this before, though never in an alien species. The conservationists were treating Ricard like a wild animal that needed to be tamed. But he wasn't wild. He was a child who'd lost everything, lashing out at a universe that had betrayed him. Every approach, every attempt to contain or control him, only reinforced that the world was full of threats. "Let me try," Lyra said quietly. Quothal's antenna flattened against his carapace. "You? A human? Forgive my directness, but your species has been in the galactic community for less than a decade. We have xenobiologists with centuries of experience who have failed." "Exactly," Lyra replied. "You've all tried the same approach because it works with actual wild animals. But Ricard isn't wild. He's scared." Before the administrator could protest further, Lyra walked to the containment field entrance. She could feel Quothal's disapproving glare boring into her back, but she didn't care. The humans hadn't joined the galactic community to play it safe. She disabled her translator. Whatever was about to happen, she wanted it to be honest, unfiltered by algorithmic interpretation. Then she deactivated the containment field and stepped inside. Ricard's snarl became a roar. He charged immediately, a blur of scales and fury. Lyra didn't move. She simply stood there, hands at her sides, making herself as small and unthreatening as possible. The cub skidded to a halt inches from her boots, confused by her lack of reaction. He circled her, growling, occasionally feinting, as if to strike. Lyra remained motionless, breathing slowly, letting him investigate. Minutes stretched like hours. Outside the containment area, she could see aliens pressing against the observation window, their various forms of anatomy expressing universal shock. "Let them watch," she thought. "Let them see what humans understand that they don't." Eventually, Ricard's growls softened. His tail stopped lashing. He sat back on his haunches, those amber eyes studying her with wary intelligence. There was a question in that gaze, one that transcended language. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" Slowly, moving with the deliberate care of someone approaching a frightened child, Lyra lowered herself into a crouch. She extended one finger toward Ricard's snout and made a soft, nonsensical sound, the kind humans make to soothe infants and animals alike. Ricard's eyes narrowed, his lips pulled back to reveal needle-sharp teeth, and then Lyra did something that made every alien in the observation bay gasp in horror. She booped his nose. One gentle tap of her fingertip against the scaled tip of Ricard's snout. It was absurd. It was illogical. By every measure of xenobiological protocol, it should have resulted in Lyra losing her finger. Ricard froze. His bioluminescent markings flickered with confusion. He tilted his head, processing this utterly unexpected form of contact. It wasn't an attempt to restrain him. It wasn't clinical or cold. It was playful, kind. It treated him not as a specimen or a threat, but as a person worthy of gentleness. For the first time since his rescue, Ricard's snarl faded completely. He made a sound somewhere between a chirp and a purr, leaning forward to sniff Lyra's hand. She booped his nose again. His tail began to wag. Over the following weeks, the transformation was remarkable. Lyra visited Ricard daily, and each session began the same way. With a boop. That simple gesture became a bridge between species. A declaration that touch didn't have to mean control or harm. It could mean connection. Ricard began eating regularly. His aggressive displays ceased. He learned to play, chasing holographic lights and wrestling with enrichment toys. But more than anything, he craved those boops. Every time Lyra entered his enclosure, he would rush to her and present his nose, waiting with barely contained excitement for that gentle tap. The xenobiologists were baffled. Administrator Quothall requested a full analysis of human psychology and social behaviors. What they discovered both fascinated and unsettled them. Humans, it turned out, possessed an almost supernatural ability to form bonds across species barriers. They'd done it with hundreds of creatures on their homeworld, domesticating predators and befriending everything from apex hunters to tiny insects. They called it empathy, but it was more than that. It was a willingness to be vulnerable, to extend trust first, to see personhood where others saw only biology. 6 months later, when a delegation from the Kynathi colony world came to claim their lost cub, Ricard was thriving. He'd learned to trust again, to play, to accept care from multiple handlers. But when the Kynathi elders asked how the humans had accomplished what so many had failed to do, Lyra simply smiled. "We booped his nose," she said. Sometimes the simplest gestures carry the greatest meaning. Sometimes all anyone needs, whether they're human or Kynathi or anything else, is to know that someone sees them not as a problem to be solved, but as a soul worthy of gentleness. As Ricard boarded the transport that would take him home, he turned back one final time. Lyra crouched down and extended her finger. The cub bounded over and pressed his snout against it, purring with contentment. Then he was gone, leaving behind a station full of aliens who'd learned an important lesson about the strange, empathetic creatures from Earth. Humans, they realized, didn't conquer through strength alone. They conquered through connection. And sometimes, that connection began with nothing more than a boop.